let's talk about, now, okay, if you've listened to the show long enough, when you heard me say we go to Romania, I'm sure a lot of you were reaching for the skip button because you know I can't pronounce stuff. And when a story takes place in any country other than America, I can't pronounce most of it. And to be fair, there's a lot of stuff I can't pronounce in America either. But yes, we're going to Romania. So we're going to Romania. We are going to take the Carpenter copter over there. It's quite a long journey, but it's a very comfortable helicopter. It's quite roomy. It's like a Chinook. It's like big. So anyways, the Carpenter copter goes all the way over to Romania. And we're going to the... Here we go, guys. Here we go with the pronunciations. We're going to the Bucegi Mountains. So the Bucegi Mountains is a mountain range. It's actually it's part of a bigger mountain range throughout Europe, but the Bucegi Mountains are in Romania. And there's a few reasons. People have always thought there was something off about these mountains. Some people thought it was off in a good way. Some people thought it was off in a bad way. So there's two monuments on the mountains. One is the Sphinx. I got that pronunciation right. Sphinx. And the other one is the Babel. So the Babel means old woman in Romanian, supposedly. But it's just two big old mushrooms. Two big old rocks that look like mushrooms. The Sphinx is part of the mountainside that does admittedly look like the Sphinx from Egypt, but more weathered. So you can kind of see the outline of a chin. You can kind of see the outline of a nose and so on and so forth. Obviously, though, when you look at it, you go, yeah, I guess it can kind of look like a Sphinx. But the idea was, the rumor going around was that there really was a Sphinx there, and it just got weathered so much. And so aliens made it. And scientists go, no, that's not true. What happened was it was a normal mountain that just got weathered down and just happens to kind of look like a face. But locals were like, there's something mystical about these mountains. Now, and I do want to say this. So there's not a lot of information, or I should say there's not a lot of well-written information on this mountain range, but it is supposed to be a big deal. That is an interesting story nonetheless. So in 2003, the rumor goes, in 2003, the Pentagon was flying a spy satellite looking for geological deposits. It had like this ground-penetrating beam that let it see what was under the earth. I don't know if those actually exist, but it would make sense because you'd want to know what resources were in certain areas to deny enemy access to those areas. But anyway, so the ground-penetrating satellite was shooting beams into the mountain range, and it discovered a massive underground chamber inside the mountain. Then what happened was, I'm going to read this quote from this book. There's a book called Transylvania Sunrise, which is a bomb name. It's a great name. And it really goes into the story of the Bucegi Mountains. This is a quote from it. Okay, so it says in 2003, Pentagon discovered the story I just told you. Then it goes on to say, through the highest levels of Freemasonry, the Pentagon was able to secure an alliance with the most secret department of the Romanian intelligence service, which is known as Department Zero. So and first off, the Pentagon wouldn't need the Freemasons to put them in touch with the Romanian government. It took place in 2003. They could pick up a phone or just fly over there. But anyway, so apparently they had to use their Freemason contacts to get a hold of the people in Romania to say, hey, we want to look and see what's in that mountain. And the rumor goes that that's the reason why Romania was allowed to join NATO. Not because it is a kind of a choke point against Russia, but it's because they have something in their mountain range. We had the Vatican and the Freemasons and the Pentagon all going to Romania, and what they supposedly found was huge underground caverns with huge chairs and huge tables made of stone. So it made it look like a race of giants lived under the mountains before. These tunnels apparently crisscross around the world. So these you can go into the tunnel in Romania. So you can hop in like a little minecart and go from Romania underneath the Bucegi Mountains to underneath the Sphinx in Egypt. Okay, so then you catch your little minecart. It takes two of us. So it's one of those ones where you're like one person's pumping each side and moves down the rail. It's going to take us for like 8 years to do this journey. We can go to Egypt. We can go to Baghdad. The tunnels also go to Baghdad. They also go to Mount Kalish or Kaliash in Tibet. And they all kind of meet in one or two places. Underneath the Gobi Plateau in Mongolia is this massive opening where it's like everyone's just kind of hanging out. And it also, you can take it all the way to Antarctica. So, just to be clear here, the story is that you can take a tunnel from Egypt to Antarctica. I don't care how big you are, that is a long walk. So unless these giants had some sort of technology, you'd still be like, dude, I'm not going to Antarctica. Like, I don't care what's down there. I'm hanging out underneath the Sphinx. I'm good. So the story goes is that's why the government wanted it, because they realized there is this huge underground civilization. They're gone now. There's no reports, at least that I saw. I haven't read Transylvanian Sunrise. But again, from what I read, there weren't like fighting giants down there or anything. It's just all kind of empty rooms. So I read all that stuff, and I was like, yeah, I guess it's possible that there's tunnels crisscrossing. Well, actually, there are tunnels crisscrossing the planet, and there's been theories about giants in the past and things like that. But I read it, and that was it. I was like, I hope this is kind of a dead end. Like, oh, they found this tunnel that I've never heard of. No other conspiracy sites ever really talk about this mountain range. So I was like, but then I found something interesting. When I say found something interesting, I simply continued to read the article I was previously reading. But at this point, I was getting kind of bored. I was like, oh yeah, tunnels, stone, big tables, no bodies there, no technology. It's just even if I accept the story as being true, it's just a bunch of empty tunnels that go everywhere. Then I read something interesting as I scrolled down another 3 inches. So, from the year 82 BC to 106 AD, in that area, there was the Kingdom of Dacia. And the people there were known as Dacians. They were also known as Thracians. But anyways, they lived in this area until the Romans eventually conquered them in 106 AD. Now, there is a Greek historian named Herodotus. Now, I have to say, imagine you're born and your parents holding you, a little baby boy, and it's Greek times, and they look at you and they go, your name will be Hero. And you're like, yes. And then they go, Dotus. You'd be like, come on, man. Why couldn't you just stopped at Hero? But anyways, this guy's name is Herodotus. I could be pronouncing it wrong. I most certainly am pronouncing it wrong. But anyways, Herodotus was a Greek historian. And he wrote about the Thracians. They had a story. They worshipped this god named Zalmoxis. Zalmoxis was their deity that watched over them. And Zalmoxis lived in the mountains. And I have this. This is actually from Herodotus's histories of the area. I just thought this was crazy. So this is referring to the Thracians. They believe they are immortal forever, living in the following sense. They think they do not die, and that the one who dies joins Zalmoxis, a divine being. Some call this same divine being Gebelisius. Every 4 years, they send a messenger to Zalmoxis, who is chosen by chance. They ask him to tell Zalmoxis what they want on that occasion. So you say, hey, we're going to pick you, and we're going to tell you the message we want delivered to Zalmoxis. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll go do that. Let me continue with Herodotus' story. The mission is performed in the following way. Men standing there for that purpose hold 3 spears. Other people take the one who was sent to Zalmoxis by his hands and feet and fling him in the air on the spears. If he dies pierced, they think that the divinity is going to help them. If he does not die, it is he who is accused, and they declare that he is a bad person. And after he has been charged, they send another one. So basically, you get pulled out of the crowd. You're like, oh, right, I'm going to go meet Zalmoxis. And you're kind of suspicious because you realize you've never seen anyone come back from this ritual. And you get there and you see dudes holding spears and other guys grab your hands and feet and they start going 1, 2. And then you realize that's why no one ever comes back. So if you get stabbed, if you die from landing on the spears, that means it's a good omen. If you don't die, if you just get like horribly mangled, then you were a bad person and not a good offering to Zalmoxis. Little ritual, bizarre thing to this god. But here's the weird thing. Zalmoxis, according to Herodotus, who did the history of this area, Zalmoxis actually existed. He was a freed slave of Pythagoras, the math guy. And so he learned all about math and Pythagorean theorems and a bunch of smart Greek stuff. And he went to Romania and used his knowledge to make himself incredibly rich and powerful because he was smarter than everybody. And then one day he said, you know what? I need a break. I'm going to go dig a tunnel in the Bucegi Mountains. And he did. He just went in and created this home, and people thought he had died. 3 or 4 years had passed. And then he showed back up and was like, "Yeah, no, I'm fine. I was just building a massive tunnel system under those mountains. What do you guys want?" And people would get his advice. And then after a while, he'd be like, "Nah, I'm going to go back." Weird. That was a weird connection, because now it's definitely possible that the guy who wrote Transylvania Sunrise knew of the legend of Zalmoxis and said, "Oh, tunnels underneath the mountains, I'm going to weave that into my story." But I mean, that's the most likely scenario, but it is still weird that they had this god that they sacrificed people to, and they were able to track it back to a living person who was like, and he did take that time period where he was gone for a couple years, he was gone for 4 years, and then he comes back out, and that's why they had that thing where every 4 years they'd have to sacrifice someone to this guy under the mountain. Really, he was probably just a pile of bones they were sacrificing this guy to. But it's still weird how often can we track a deity back to a real person? But I just realized that's Jesus. And Muhammad. Yeah. Okay, so maybe it's not so... I still think it's an interesting story. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.